What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, the Colts get their first dub of the year against the Chicago Bears in a Week 3 matchup at Lucas Oil Stadium. We're about to talk about that, but today, guys, I want to say again, this episode is presented by PrizePicks. Be sure to visit the PrizePicks app today and use the code BTJ for a $100 deposit match when you sign up. So, guys, the Colts win in a very ugly fashion against the Chicago Bears, 21-16. And, I mean, Cody, I think that in retrospect, I think the main reason that the Colts win this game, simply because they were able to run the ball a lot more effectively than the Chicago Bears were. And we're going to talk about that here in a second, but we have to talk about coaching here for a second here, Cody. I know normally I like to talk about coaching right away if there's something to be addressed, but I got to tell you, I think I'm not giving up on Shane Steichen. In no way am I suggesting that, but I am starting to get concerned about how he's managing the game and how undisciplined some parts of this team are. Like, the offense is not executing at a high level. Yes, Anthony Richardson's been bad, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But the few plays that you ask these guys to run in pivotal situations, and guys aren't making the plays necessary to help this team move the ball at all. And, I mean, Cody, if that end kick, if that non-return by Gould would have cost us this game, I would have immediately been sitting there saying this entire loss was on Shane Steichen. Because for some reason, that kid decided, I got the ball, I shouldn't return it. Even though it was clear there was 2:01 left on the clock. Someone should have said, hey, if you catch this ball, regardless of where you catch it, run with it. Run it. Caught it and just decided, no, I'm gonna kneel it. Like, it made no sense. It made no sense because you gave Chicago another timeout with the 2-minute warning. And if Jonathan Taylor did not get a first down, then we might have had a situation where the Bears could have realistically had a chance to potentially win that game. And I think this team is extremely undisciplined right now, and that results in coaching.
You know, I made a tweet and I'm like, man, it just seems like Shane Steichen's decision making and just the team execution, just everything is so far beyond horrible compared to where it was a year ago. Like, it just seems so much worse. And I'm like, who do you blame? Do you blame Shane Steichen? Do you blame the coaches? Do you blame the players? Or do you do a little bit of both? And I think it is a little bit of both. Players who should be executing and doing things they're supposed to be doing are not. In certain ways, in certain capacities. Players who should know better, have better situational awareness, like, are just doing dumb stuff. And this isn't just, we'll talk about Anthony Richardson and some of the poor decisions he had today, but it's not even those type of players all the time. It's players who should know better and coaches who should know better, and it's weird, Derek, that it seems like Shane Steichen, it's like he's not making, necessarily the same mistakes he made last year. He's making all new ones, which is just odd. Like, it's just odd. Like, this team didn't have that issue as much last year. So I just don't understand, man. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what it stems from. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think it falls on the head coach. It has to. So, yeah, just some very situations. If, they don't go your way, you could be looking at the third straight loss of the season. You really could have. Like you said, just some things like that. Doing the little things well. The Colts have not done that very well this season. Doing even some things that maybe people look at and say, oh, what's the big deal? But if those things add up, I mean, you're right. Like, it could cost you a game here and again. And honestly, it has in certain ways already this season through 3 weeks. That's why you're sitting here still with a losing record, is because you've frankly been bad at the little things and doing those well. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think the coaching right now is very, very much below average from Shane Steichen, and a lot's got to change, from the execution of the players to the communication to just frankly calling better plays from Shane Steichen. I mean, Seriously, it's kind of been bad for Shane Steichen so far. I like the last 2 weeks specifically, Derek, he has been abysmal, I think is the word I'm looking for. It's not been good. Now, I will give him credit, Derek, especially in that second half. The Colts needed to run the ball in that fourth quarter, and they did run the ball in that fourth quarter a lot, which is exactly what they needed to do, So, but there's still some things where I'm like, why are we getting away from our strengths again? Which we've talked about. Like this team, we know what they're going to do. It's no secret they're going to run the ball, but like, why are we making AR, to steal what Stephen Holder said earlier this week? Why are we putting all the pressure on this young kid? Like, why are we making him throw the ball? Like, we know he's not where he needs to be anywhere close to. We know he's basically a rookie. So why are we doing essentially exactly what you tried to do with Andrew Luck his rookie season, where you made him go out there and be the hero all the time? So I just don't like it. Now, hopefully, that fourth quarter is a good sign of things to come when it comes to the play calling and what the Colts are able to do, because they're able to run the ball very effectively today, Derek, against a Chicago defense that they're not slouches like Green Bay was. Like, they actually have some guys in there who can stop the run. So, I was very pleased with that aspect. But yeah, there's still a lot of issues with this team, a lot of issues, and I think it starts just with the coaching staff for sure.
All right, well, we might as well go to the quarterback himself. Another bad outing for Anthony Richardson in this game. Went 10 of 20 for 167 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns on the day. Was sacked once early in the first quarter with a QB rating of 39. Cody, this is a two-parter for you because it has to be talked about on both ends here. Because regardless of what we say here, people are still going to say that the AR experiment has failed and it's time to move on. So first of all, give me your thoughts on Anthony Richardson today. And second of all, do you believe in the idea of people saying that he needs to be benched? I think I know your answer, but go ahead and talk to me about the people who suggest that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start right off the top, Derek, and say Anthony Richardson throwing the football was god-awful today.
It was bad.
Horrible. Today. Terrible. Didn't have touch. Couldn't throw a simple pass. Derek, there's passes that you and I could have completed today that Anthony Richardson airmailed. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, when I say that, like, routine, like high school quarterback can make that throw, like that sort of stuff where it's like, oh my word, like just take some off of that, man. Like, just make it, just make it easy on yourself. You don't always have to have the 40-yard bomb down the field, But saying that, Derek, I mean, are we surprised? I don't think I am, because, yes, I mean, it was worse, I think, than we've ever seen it today. Don't get me wrong. But, Derek, I mean, we talked about this. This is this guy's rookie season. Like, this is his fourth completed game. I mean, really, like, I guess third completed game of the season. And however you want to divvy it out, I mean, he's still around 300 snaps played. So,
yeah,
I mean, still, he doesn't have a lot of football experience in live rep settings. So for me, I look at that and I say, look, like, he was bad. He's got to get better in a lot of areas. I made this tweet out, Derek, today in the game. I said, Anthony Richardson is the youngest quarterback in the league. And he's also probably one of the worst passing quarterbacks in the league. I think both of those can be true at this point. And you definitely don't need to, like, give up on the kid. I definitely think it was something where you're like, okay, he's got a long ways ahead of him to actually even be a competent quarterback from the passing standpoint. I mean, no doubt. He's got a long way to go in that department. But I also look at it going to your other question about should you sit him? And I sit there and I say the only reason, Derek, why I would ever sit Anthony Richardson is if his confidence is just shot. If it's a Bryce Young situation, right, where he cannot be on the field. And even then, I don't know if I 100% agree with that, what the Panthers did there. But if that would be the only way that I'd even consider it. Because what have we been talking about for the past 2 years with Anthony Richardson? Reps. That's what we've been saying. How many times have we said that? How many times does every single person say that? And now when you want the kid to get reps, and when he's getting reps and he doesn't look like a polished product and he doesn't look like a good quarterback, a project quarterback that we knew was a project quarterback coming into this, why are we surprised at this? Why are we surprised at this? Does he have to be better? 100 times better.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not absolving him of blame at all. I mean, his touch is horrible right now. I mean, it's terrible. He's got to get so much better in those ways. But Derek, it's just for a kid you took 4th overall, even to throw out the idea of benching him for Joe Flacco at this point, I think is insane. It's insane because how in the world is this kid going to grow? How is he going to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and get better through the course of the season if you're just going to jump ship when things get tough?
And if you sit Anthony Richardson, you are inevitably saying as an organization that this season has been for nothing.
Right.
That's what you say. That's what you're saying to everyone in the NFL is that you're sitting Anthony Richardson. You have given up hope that this team is worth something later on in the future. Because, yes, Joe Flacco going in, likely Cody probably wins you quite a few more games down the road. It might win you a few more games this season. But after that, if this team doesn't make the playoffs still with Joe Flacco, even if it does, what do you get after that? What's left after it? There's no Joe Flacco after this year. And Anthony Richardson just lost all those reps. And therefore he doesn't. And then so the people that are saying bench him and put in the better quarterback right now, you win more games. And therefore then you're stuck next year with the quarterback that you didn't want to begin with. And then he's going to be still bad because he didn't get those reps. And then on top of it, you're still did too good this year that you don't get a good draft pick. If the Colts are going to be bad and they're going to get a really good draft pick out of the fact that Anthony Richardson just sucked all year, then that's fine. I would rather us lose games and have Anthony Richardson develop as a quarterback. We get a good draft pick out of it, and then we just move on. And then we are still going to see what guys, regardless of what happens this year, Anthony Richardson is going to be the Indianapolis Colts quarterback in 2025. I'm sorry to burst your bubbles. Anthony Richardson's not going anywhere, guys. He's not. He has to play next year because the ultimate premise of this is that Anthony Richardson needs snaps. That's the ultimate point. If you don't give him the snaps and you don't give him the reps, as Cody mentioned, then you wasted a 4th overall draft pick for absolutely nothing. Your GM gets fired. A bunch of other staff members get fired. And then this whole team is going to look completely different in 2025 or 2026. Like completely different. Like there's almost virtually nothing that is the same. You would do a complete overhaul. And I know some Colts fans are going to immediately type out and say, oh, but I want that. Oh, but I want that. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because this team is a good quarterback away from being able to actually contend or actually beat every team that they're in. And the closest option right now is to get Anthony Richardson those reps. I get it. He has not looked good, and there's a million other things he's got to get better at. But you are inevitably telling those players on that team, you have given up on this young man. Yeah. Again, Bryce Young didn't deserve it. Bryce Young's in a worse situation than Indianapolis. I mean, I hate comparing the situations because Anthony Richardson is in so much better of a situation than Bryce Young. He's got a better coach. He's got a better scheme. He's got a better group of players around him. Bryce Young got done dirty by his team. You know, but they're not going to do that to Anthony Richardson because Chris Ballard put his job on the line last year when he brought this kid in to try to be the franchise quarterback. And we know he's not it right now, but it's because his biggest problem is he doesn't have the reps. So we got to give him more time, as much as we hate saying it too, because we're like the rest of y'all. We want to see this guy do better. Of course we want to see Anthony Richardson do better. We're not defending his play. What we're saying is you can't give up on a work in progress before we actually see the finished product. And you can't sit here and say this guy, after 20 games as a collegiate and professional athlete, you could sit there and say that that is absolutely the finished product. It's not. Okay. So quit acting like it is. Quit saying it because you know it's not true. Or if you know it's true, then you're just an idiot. Okay. So we digress. We move on. Let's go to something that actually did the wonders for this team today, Cody. The rushing attack. Jonathan Taylor with another fantastic game running the football. 23 carries, 110 yards, 5 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns on the day. Anthony Richardson had 8 carries for 24 yards, a couple of pretty good runs as well to help them get into the red zone. And Trey Sermon with 2 carries for 16 yards on that one drive where he scored a touchdown as well. I mean, Cody, this rushing attack for the Indianapolis Colts, it's been good, man, especially the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm glad that Shane Steichen finally understood that, like, hey, it's time we give Jonathan Taylor, some actual running opportunities, because he took full advantage of it. And so did Sermon and so did Richardson. I mean, this is what this team needs to do. They need to be running the ball 30 times a game at least to keep themselves in games and to help Richardson along the way, because that's dominant right there.
Yeah, and it's not where it needs to be yet. But, it's getting better in the department of helping out this young kid, is taking the pressure off of him, giving Jonathan Taylor 20-plus carries, giving him pretty much double the amount of carries he had a week ago, and we know, Derek, Chicago has a good secondary. They have a good defense. They played back-to-back really good defenses, like really good secondaries, I should say. And so what should they do? Run the football. That's what you should do. And, they did. And so that's exactly what they needed to do in this situation. And also shout out to AR on that Trey Sermon run, because he came behind him, man, and he made that happen. So as much as he didn't play well, I mean, when it mattered, dude,
his
like
effort,
Anthony Richardson's there.
His effort is insane, man. Say whatever you want, but this kid is trying so hard. Even though his throwing ability, it seems like he's lacked confidence a little bit in his throwing ability right now. I mean, this kid still tries. And I love so much of it.
I mean, it could be so easy, Derek, for him to hang his head and just be, how it goes. Like when you turn it over twice, and especially one time in the red zone when you should have thrown it away and at least got 3 points out of that, like that sort of stuff. Like when you do that, like it's so easy for any quarterback to lose confidence. And, like we said, he's got a long way to go, but I love that. I love just the competitiveness of him and that he's never going to back down, even if it doesn't look good sometimes, So definitely great to see there from the rushing attack, Anthony Richardson, Trey Sermon, Jonathan Taylor, all those guys doing what they need to do. And that's the recipe for this team, man. Run the ball, pass when necessary. That's what you got to do, I think, honestly. So, definitely was excited and encouraged by that running game again today.
And, I mean, we might as well stick with the unit that's been making it all happen, and that's the offensive line. I mean, there was a couple times, Cody, where like some blocking schemes, I couldn't understand it. It seemed like it was getting to be a little too cute. But man, I mean, that offensive line, man, I mean, they keep doing their freaking jobs, Cody. I mean, they through 3 weeks have just been as advertised, and they're doing exactly what they needed to do. They have just gotten the job done. They're able to move units. They're able to protect Anthony Richardson pretty well. I mean, what more can you say about this offensive line, man? I mean, I wish I could give them more credit and say more things, but I will say this: Big Q was getting into it on some of these runs today. I mean, Nelson was like chest bumping Sermon and Richardson and JT and all them after all these big runs. I mean, Big Q is getting into it. And, that is something I really think the Colts need to keep having is, these offensive linemen showing emotion, because right now it's so hard as an offense with inconsistent quarterback play to be able to have like a vote of confidence. But when this team's running the football like that, I mean, this team's fun to watch on that.
It is, man. And also when you go back to the Colts actually running the ball, I know it still wasn't great, but like it looked a lot better than it has in the past from a time of possession type of thing. Yeah, the Colts still lost that battle today, but I mean, it was a lot better than it was against Houston. It was a lot better than it was against Green Bay. So I'll take that, and it starts with a good running game, starts with this offensive line. I think, Derek, they probably weren't as good in certain ways as, especially even like last week against Green Bay. I thought they were phenomenal, and I think they weren't as good, but they were still good. Like, they were still good, like over 100 yards rushing, like you mentioned, and only one sack on the quarterback today. So, I mean, you'll take that from your offensive line. I'm totally good and content with where this offensive line currently stands right now. It's definitely, in my mind, Derek, continues to be a strength of this team, and that's why the Colts need to continue to lean on it moving forward.
All right. Well, and then the last unit here for the wide receivers, Alec Pierce leading the way once again for the wide receivers. That 44-yard catch early in the first half that ended up, not having any points to show for it anyways. Colts ended up throwing an interception at the goal line anyways. Kylan Granson with a 40-yard catch today. Michael Pittman, 4 catches today, was the leading receiver in that category for 36 yards. Nice to see Michael Pittman, make those tough and nitty-gritty catches today. Jonathan Taylor with a big one for 25 yards today. And Josh Downs, 3 catches for 22 yards as well. Also had a drop earlier in the day. And also, Cody, I mean, Adonai Mitchell, I don't know, dude. I mean, this is weird. This is such a weird thing because he was dominating people in training camp. It didn't even matter if it was just the Colts players. In the joint practices, he was dominating people. And yet this kid just seems to not be able to catch a ball anywhere. I mean, I know it wasn't a great throw, the one target that he did get, but like, I'll be honest, Cody, his lack of effort at times is concerning me on some of the plays that he has. But as far as the wide receiver room in general, how'd you feel about it?
I've been very disappointed outside of Alec Pierce in this wide receiver room. And I know it's like Anthony Richardson's not been super accurate, so that definitely hasn't helped. But yeah, Adonai Mitchell has just been a disappointment, man. A major disappointment. I mean, who would have had on their bingo card at the start of the season, Alec Pierce would be by far your best receiver on your team right now? I mean, nobody would have thought that, So it's kind of crazy how that's where we're at when it comes to this right now. But yeah, it's been a unit that has had a lot of investment. And honestly, Derek, you haven't, at least so far through 3 games, you haven't had a lot of production from this group. You really haven't. And again, the quarterback play is important. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I need to see some more consistency, especially from Adonai Mitchell. I mean, there was one pass, Derek, where yes, it maybe wasn't the most accurate pass, but Mitchell's got to go up and get that, man. Like the lack of effort, like you talked about, it is a little bit concerning. I know that was a concern that people had coming out of college, was he's, on the routes and, sometimes effort has been an issue. So I don't know what the deal is with Adonai Mitchell, man. It's been kind of frustrating to see, like, he's had opportunities, but either they haven't been on the same page or he just hasn't seemed like he cares as much like as he should. And that's concerning to me a little bit.
Guys, football season is right around the corner. Definitely got to make sure you're getting in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. You guys can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks, guys. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with any entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. I mean, guys, look, I'm looking at some of these entries here. And if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan like myself, which you probably are because you're on here right now, well, I'm just looking at some of these season numbers here. And some of the stuff for Anthony Richardson, I have to get in on. Guys, we have one right here where it's 7.5 on the season rushing touchdowns for Anthony Richardson. Folks, Anthony Richardson had 4 rushing touchdowns in just 10 quarters of football last season. What do you think he's going to do this year when he's actually healthy and fully capable of going? Now, obviously, they're playing into the fact that they think he might get injured. Anthony Richardson doesn't. that 7.5 is an easy more when you want to talk into that one, guys. So make sure you are getting in on the action of getting some of these numbers for Anthony Richardson and other Colts players as well. Remember, guys, be sure to download the Prize Picks app today and use the code BTJ for your first deposit match up to $100. Yep, definitely. All right, well, we can go to the defensive side of things, Cody. For the once this season, Cody, we actually have something fun to talk about with this defense.
Yes.
I will say though, man, the injuries at the end were just becoming killer. I mean, I don't even like saying this, but thank God those injuries happened at the end of the game when the game was practically out of reach anyway, because if it wasn't, the Chicago Bears might have came back and beat us, dude. Honestly, because it was getting bad. I mean, Dallas Flowers went out with an injury. Kenny Moore got banged up several times in this game. Kwity Paye went down with an injury. I mean, it was everywhere, man. It was bad. You can talk about that here in a minute. But the best thing about it, we got to talk about it first. 63 yards for Chicago running the ball today. Yes. I know Chicago's offense has been very bad at running the football, which is understandable. But again, for as bad as this team has been at stopping the run, even without DeForest Buckner, held this team to under 70 yards rushing, 2.3 yards a carry today. I mean, that is fantastic. I don't care if they're really bad at running the football. That is exactly what you needed to do to rebound from two abysmal performances stopping the run prior. How'd you feel about this team stopping the run today?
I mean, what can you say? Chicago sucks at running the football, but it was like two of the worst teams at what they do.
We were fully anticipating them going in there rushing for 150, were we not?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, I fully anticipated that happening, but we were fortunate enough that, they got on the right track today, which is good. And maybe that's what it takes, Derek. Just a performance against a bad team running that can't run the football to maybe build up some of that confidence again. Because we know the Colts have the personnel to do it. I mean, they've done it, Derek. Like, we've seen them do it. It's just been like, it's just been so shocking, like how they just have had no execution. But, to give them credit, they definitely did. They bared down, Derek. Honestly, they did against the Bears. They bared down against the Bears, and they did well stopping the run without DeForest Buckner. Gus Bradley trying to make us all go insane by starting Taven Bryan at 3 tech, but you know what? He's insane anyway, so we roll with it. But I thought they were all right. Raekwon Davis made a couple plays, which was good to see. You mentioned a couple other guys as well making some plays in the backfield. So yeah, great day for the Colts. Considering what they've been doing at stopping the run. I mean, Roschon Johnson was your leading rusher with 30 yards, and he only had 8 attempts. DeAndre Swift, 13 carries for 20 yards in this game, Derek. So Colts did a good job on him. I didn't know, sometimes you see defenses struggle with those shiftier backs, and he had a couple moments, but nothing crazy. He didn't kill you. So, yeah, I think the run defense for sure had a very solid game.
And, that forced the Chicago Bears to have to throw the ball a lot. Caleb Williams had to throw the ball 52 times in this game, Cody. I mean, that's insane. Yes, he had 2 touchdowns. I mean, granted, you're going to get a lot of points or you're going to have a lot of yards and chances at a lot of touchdowns when you throw the ball 52 times. I mean, let's be real. So, I mean, the Bears had to, the entire second half, pretty much had to throw the football or else they weren't going to be able to move the ball. So it is what it is. I mean, again, the injuries at the end, they weren't able to stop the team. And the stats made it look worse than what it actually was. Again, for 3 quarters, the Colts had everything under control. And then in that last quarter, the defense started losing it a little bit, but mainly just because of the injuries that we kept dealing with. But overall, like, again, the numbers The one thing I will say, Cody, the one thing that I didn't like about the defense today, Cole Kmet, every time it was a third down, it went to Cole Kmet, and nobody would stop him. That's what bothered me, is Gus Bradley never took it upon himself to try to say, hey, there's this guy. I need you to stop him. He caught it every third down, Cody. It did frustrate me that the Colts didn't make an adjustment and stop the one weapon that was always getting targeted in the big plays.
Yeah, that was definitely frustrating. Derek, I just don't know, man. These linebackers are just not it for me. They're just not doing it. I mean, they were better in the run game today.
Yes.
Derek, Zaire Franklin keeps missing tackles, man. He had like 4 or 5. He missed. He completely whiffed. I just don't get it. And, like you said,
the
tight end, Cole Kmet.
Atrocious. Yeah.
Yeah, Cole Kmet, completely killing you on third down. And that was definitely the biggest issue with this team today, and just some miscommunication a little bit. I mean, at the end of the game, just letting them march right down the field. I tell you, man, it's so frustrating when this team just gets like almost lax back there on defense. Like, when the offense scores, they have a lead, they just don't play complementary football a lot of times, and that's what's so frustrating about this defense. Is like they can go for 3 quarters and just completely shut them down. But then all of a sudden they let them go on 2 big drives and keep the game interesting. It's like, why? Why don't you attack? And that is, I think, one of our biggest issues is Gus Bradley. He's just content to sit back and see what happens. It's like, no, you have to attack. As much as issues we've had with Shane Steichen, at least this offense attacks. This defense doesn't do anything with that. And that's what's frustrating. But when they do, they actually have success. Like, they blitzed a couple guys today and they had some success. So, like, he's a rookie quarterback. Get after him, man. Make his life uncomfortable back there. I don't know. I just think I'll always have an issue with Gus Bradley until he's gone. It's just like, he's just never going to change. And that's unfortunate. Yeah. But absolutely, whatever, man. Whatever. For the most part, you did a good job today until that fourth quarter at really containing the Bears' passing attack, which does have some weapons. I know they were without Keenan Allen today, but they still have Roma Dunze, still have DJ Moore, still have Cole Kmet. So they still have some weapons out there for Caleb Williams. But, yeah, I mean, for the most part, like you said, it looked a lot worse than it was. The stats made it look a lot worse than it was. But I thought the pass defense was just fine today, really, up until that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. And, I mean, like you said, Zaire Franklin still missing tackles. Kenny Moore missed 1 or 2 that really shocked me, too. But they got back into the right frame of mind here. Franklin and Speed both leading the team in tackles in this game. Franklin with 15 and Speed with 12. So, I mean, again, great effort there by Franklin and Speed. Like, as you said, got back into the rhythm of stopping the run. That's where that was needed. They needed to have that happen. Nick Cross also had 10 tackles today. He did allow a touchdown in this game that kind of really made me mad. But some key performers today. I mean, let's start with the obvious. I mean, Kenny Moore also had a half sack today, along with Kwity Paye, who also had a half sack. Adetomiwa had a sack today. Actually beat Matt Pryor, Cody, to actually get the sack too. Matt Pryor's making other people's lives hell. Let's go. And then Taven Bryan actually with a sack today as well. So it was great to see Taven Bryan actually get in on that action. As much, Cody, as we've been bashing him over the last 2 weeks, it's good to actually see him, actually have something good. And of course, the man that made probably the biggest play of the entire game and was Latu, the one tackle he gets, and it was a strip sack at the inside the 20-yard line, and the Colts got the ball at Chicago's 18, and it looked very Robert Mathis-esque, if I do say so myself. I said that on the live stream, and he only had to make one tackle. He only had to make one play all day, Cody, and that was it. That was the one that was needed to help this team win this game. And I mean, Latu had a lot of pressures today, just never quite got home. But overall, the Colts had 4 sacks and 7 tackles for a loss, 6 QB hits. So, I mean, yeah, they were making Caleb Williams' day a living hell for real. Who surprised you today on the defense?
Well, it's interesting. You talk about Latu doing what he did, and I mean, we forget, Derek. This kid didn't practice all week. Like he didn't practice.
Yeah, he didn't practice at all,
and he should have had 3 sacks today. Like he was just disrupting the quarterback all day long. He was in the backfield a lot, and yeah, it's things that don't show up on the stat sheet. But like he had some pressures, man. He had some key third down, times where he disrupted things, blew it up. Like so, I mean, this kid, man, he's as good as advertised. Like we talked about this, Derek, even in preseason, we're like, this kid is he's different, man. You get that sense with him. Like he's just different when the pads come on. And yeah, you talked about very Robert Mathis-esque coming off the edge, strip sack right when you needed it, gave your offense life, and really kind of put that game out of reach, to be honest with you. So yeah, great to see from the kid. And I'm just excited, man, to see him continue to grow because, it's crazy that he's just a rookie, but he's already doing that stuff. Just the stuff that you can't teach, the timely pressures that you need. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you're missing from a guy like him, like Latu. And that's a big reason, Derek, why the Indianapolis Colts drafted him as the first overall defensive player in this draft is because plays like that, they change the game like that, So, and that's frankly what you've not had since Robert Mathis hung it up over 10 years ago. So, you needed that. You need a guy like that can be consistent. And Latu's still got to be more consistent at times, like for sure. I mean, it's his first sack of the year. So hopefully he can build off of this, but definitely great to see from the young kid, just showing why the Colts took him as early as they did.
And I'm so mad at myself. I didn't even bring up the best player on defense today. And that was Jalen Jones.
That's right.
2 interceptions today. Jalen Jones, 2 interceptions on the day for the kid. I mean, truly remarkable, especially given the situation of when those interceptions happened. One time when the Bears were traveling down the field at the end of the second quarter, and Jalen Jones jumps a route and steals the points away. And then another time right after Anthony Richardson had also thrown his own pick. So, I mean, it was so huge for the secondary to be able to have somebody that just made some plays. Like that was all it was today, was who was going to make the big play. And Jalen Jones was definitely the guy that did it today. So congratulations to Jalen Jones, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I want to give a shout out, even though he didn't get a pick today, I just felt like you definitely felt the presence of Julian Blackmon back there
Yes.
today. Like he didn't make a play. He almost had a pick actually, but he didn't make an interception today, but it just felt like things were a lot more in front of the Colts defense than behind, right? And that's why you love JB so much, is because he can do that, and guys seemed like they were knew where they were going a little bit more. Now, obviously, when 2 of your starting corners go out, things get a little messy, and that's kind of what happened in that fourth quarter. But, for the most part, I just felt like Julian Blackmon's presence back there was almost like a calming presence for the secondary. So, yeah, give him a shout out. He's just so consistent back there. I love having Julian Blackmon, and, you see why the Colts want him back and believe if he can stay healthy, he can be a part of this defense moving forward. But, yeah, he had a pretty good game, even though maybe the stats don't always show it up. I mean, he had 7 tackles still in this game, Derek, but yeah, I thought Julian Blackmon was good back there for this secondary and what they needed today.
Yep, absolutely. So that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, it is, again, a imperfect game. Clearly, a lot of work still to be done when it comes to this team, primarily on the offense. Overall, guys, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we're certainly not discrediting that. But it certainly does feel good to be able to, be able to see this team come away with a win, especially against a team that you felt like they should have won. So that's going to really do it for this one. You got any other Any other topics here, Cody, before we hop on out of here?
I tell you, man, this team, they try their best to stress us out every single week. They want us. I feel like it feels like they almost try to do that, you know. But no, overall, man, just glad to get in the win column, like you said, and hopefully they can build off of this. Even though this is a very flawed football team, a lot of issues with this team, and they got a long way to go. I mean, I think Derek, we could say like, this performance doesn't give us any more real confidence that this team, moving forward in terms of what they can do this year. But yeah, I mean, you had a lot of good, you had a lot of bad, and you move on from it. Not a super great performance, especially on the offensive side of things. An ugly performance in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, hey, a win's a win, and you need those. You need those to build your confidence and just continue to stack on wins, man. And another very winnable game for the Colts this next week against Pittsburgh. So, yeah, man, not a great performance at all. Still a lot of discouragement in a lot of ways, but a win's a win, man. And sometimes you got to win ugly. As much as it's frustrating when your team plays like this and you're still 1-2, you know what? I'll take a win.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on this game. I'm sure a lot of you will act rationally. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you guys so much. And as always, go Colts.